Only a minute passed by since the skeleton known as Brook left and told to the Straw Hat crew to run away from this mysterious and dangerous island. While some of the crew members completely agreed with what the skeleton said, the other crew members such as Luffy and Broly couldn't wait to set foot on this island as soon as possible, each with his own reason. While the two eagerly awaited to land on the island, some crew members hoped to leave this strange place immediately, but that wasn't about to happen. People, we need to get away from here, suddenly yelled Usopp, all terrified by what he heard from the skeleton. He wasn't the only one thinking the same thing yet, but wait. Where is that ghost from before? Is he still on the ship? Chopper agreed, but then shouted when he remembered the ghost. He walked behind Usopp and tried to locate the ghost that appeared not so long ago. No. He flew towards the island. He probably lives there, spoke Zoro, who was calm with all that was going on. It was true that the whole situation with the skeleton and the ghost surprised him, but he was sure something strange was going on and it would be interesting to see it. While Chopper and Usopp relaxed a little, Robin approached to the fence of the ship and gazed toward the mouth that closed them in. That large vibration from before was when that mouth-like gate closed, and I think we were eaten by that mouth, stated Robin as she pointed with her left index finger towards the mouth-shaped gate. Eaten? Do you think so? Asked Luffy, who was near her standing on the fence and couldn't wait to search the whole island. I can't be sure because of the fog, but I think that could be it, and because of that we can't leave this place, answered Robin, on which Usopp immediately screamed in fear. The screaming started to irritate the tall scion. He couldn't stand weaklings nor cowards, and on top of all, he wanted to go and find someone worth fighting. The scion walked towards the fence and tried to take a better look at the island, but even though he was from another world, he just like the humans couldn't see a thing besides one big castle on the island. Broly tried to concentrate and feel if there was someone strong enough to be worth fighting, but because of all the screaming and yelling from behind his back, he couldn't concentrate well enough. Out of frustration, the scion didn't notice that he strengthened the grip on the fence and caused the whole ship to shake under his power. Half of his companions fell on the floor because of the strong tremor, while the others barely managed to stand. Broly quickly noticed what he was doing and stopped that, but when he turned around and saw the scared expressions on few people's faces, he couldn't but spat in disgust. Whoa, what was that? Yelled Nami, who almost fell on the floor from the stairs while she was walking, but luckily the navigator stopped herself from falling by holding the fence. Probably a wave, but I think it passed. What's also the case is that we can't just drop the anchor here if the island moves, declared Frankie as he placed his sunglasses back on his head and looked around. Hey, stop talking like we're gonna go there. We need to escape from here quickly or we'll be cursed. Yelled Usopp at Frankie, on which Chopper completely agreed, while Luffy came out from the ship's room with a net and equipment to catch anything that moved, while Nami just cried in fear. I think I got an I can't go on that island disease, cried Nami while she was crouching and shaking in fear. Near her was the little Chopper, who joined her while Luffy just laughed at the two. All right, you stay here and guard the ship while we are going, said Luffy with a big smile on his face, while Usopp yelled at his captain for acting so carefree in this kind of situation. Aha! You got all your stuff prepared for an adventure. Come to your senses, Luffy. That island is dangerous, and look at that castle. It's clear that it's haunted by some evil spirits. You underestimate them. Yelled Usopp at his captain with all his might, but unfortunate for the long nose, Luffy already decided to go and there was no way in stopping him. What are you talking about? I will be really careful. I'm gonna catch the ghost and keep it, said Luffy, who was determined to catch the ghost at all cost, which only angered Usopp even more. Ah, you're underestimating them already, shouted Usopp in Luffy's ears, but the young pirate just walked away with a smile on his face. Whatever, after all, I need to bring back my crew member, Sanji. Lunchbox! Yelled Luffy as he turned towards the doors of the kitchen, only to ignore more of Usopp's yelling. Just at that moment, Sanji, followed by Robin, came out with the lunchboxes in his hands. Listen, Luffy, Frankie, you better protect Robin, ordered Sanji, who had his cigarette in his left hand, as he pointed at the duo on the deck. An adventure on a mysterious island really gets you pumped, yelled Frankie, who was getting excited as he was striking the pose. Before they departed to the island, Frankie decided to show them the docking system of the ship. While the whole crew was occupied with all the new stuff on their new ship, Broly couldn't but think how these people knew only to talk, and that was going on his nerves. While he found the docking system somehow interesting, he couldn't but laugh at the little boat that Nami, Usopp, and Chopper were riding. From the things he learned in this few days, he could come to a conclusion that this planet didn't have the advanced technology, and that made him wonder how would he leave this planet when he gets everything from it. The scion snapped from his thoughts when he heard a loud scream from far away. It seemed that something happened to the girl, the coward, and the deer. While Sanji was yelling Nami's name, Broly suddenly felt something on the ship and quickly turned his head towards the front of the ship when just then the anchor of the ship dropped in the sea, surprising everyone else, huh? The anchor just dropped! Yelled Luffy, who was the first to notice it. The others immediately looked in the same direction and wondered how was that even possible, but nobody even touched it. Anyway, pull it back up or the ship will go off balance, said Frankie, who was feeling uneasy because of what was going on all of a sudden, but just then another thing happened. The hatch on the deck opened by itself, and the first to notice that was Zoro. What? The hatch opened this time. Did somebody touch it? Asked Luffy, who was close to Sanji, looked at the hatch, and Zoro, who was only 2 meters away from it. No one was close enough to open it, answered Zoro, who immediately placed his hands on his swords, ready to cut whoever was doing this. Somebody's on this ship, stated Broly quietly, but enough to be heard by the others, who were a little surprised that the scion spoke, because of his little socializing with the others, and with sudden remark, "Wait, how do you know that?" "Huh?" asked Sanji, but never got an answer from the scion, who shifted his gaze somewhere else. The blonde cook turned around when he saw something. "Luffy, you idiot, now's not the time to goofing around," yelled Sanji at his captain, who had his mouth stretched, but little did Sanji know that this wasn't his captain's doing. While Luffy tried to explain it to Sanji, he was suddenly smacked in the face. Luffy tried to take a step forward and explain, but he suddenly found himself on the floor and with Sanji yelling at him. While all of that was going on, Robin used to consideration Broly's statement when she heard something close to them. "What is that?" "A beastly voice," wondered Robin as she looked around, while Zoro noticed that one of his swords was pulled out and moved towards Luffy to chop off his head, but to Luffy's luck, Frankie quickly moved and just kicked him away, just in time. "Hey, what the hell are you doing?" yelled Frankie at Zoro, who was so surprised that he didn't know what to say. "I'm sorry, but the sword just moved on its own," explained Zoro, who was sweating all over his forehead. This was too close, and if it weren't for Frankie, Luffy would be dead right now. "It's strange, but I think someone actually could be on the ship. Just a moment ago, I heard a growl of a wild beast," stated Robin, who was more and more sure that Broly was right. But the question was what was that and how to uncover it. "So it's a ghost, a wild beast, or a devil fruit user," said Frankie, who sweated a bit because of how uneasy he felt. This was something to be difficult to deal with. Just as Frankie finished with his sentence, Sanji jumped on the fence, all prepared to go and find Nami. Without wasting any second, the blonde cook jumped in the air, but only to be caught by the invisible hand and be smacked on the ship. "Uncool!" yelled Zoro, Luffy, and Frankie at Sanji's failed attempt to rescue the others, but they were soon even more surprised when they saw Sanji floating upside down in the air. While the three were staring at Sanji, the cook was suddenly spinning in the air and thrown away to the other side of the ship, leaving the crashed cook to wonder what just happened to him. "You're a clown," spoke Zoro with a serious face, which only angered the blonde cook. "Shut up. You saw what happened," yelled Sanji at the green-haired man. He didn't want to be mocked by Zoro, and especially, not now. "Whatever it is, it doesn't want us to leave the ship," said Frankie, who was sure that whoever it was that it had something against them and didn't want them to leave the ship. Zoro immediately pulled out the 2 swords and was ready to cut the one who was doing all the problems for them, once and for all, but just at that moment, all of them heard a yell. They all turned around and saw Robin using her devil fruit powers to protect herself from something. They didn't quite understand what was going on until they were able to hear the beastly sound for the first time. "What's going on, Robin?" yelled Sanji, who immediately stood up from the floor, worried about Robin. Something's trying to grab me," Robin barely managed to say it, since she had a hard time to protect herself from the thing that was attacking her. "You son of a thing. Trying to grab Robin," growled Sanji angrily, and was about to attack the thing, but he and the others were surprised when they suddenly saw that the thing which tried to catch Robin flew away from Robin and crashed into the storage room, leaving a huge hole in the wall. All of them turned around only to see Broly with his usual cold expression on his face standing near Robin. They were surprised because no one saw Broly in an actual battle before. Well, they only saw a little from his scuffle with Garp, but what amazed them was how he saw the thing. "Ha, weakling," proclaimed the scion and walked towards the broken wall. Broly was a little bit surprised when he noticed that the thing was on the run. The scion formed a wicked expression on his face. He was going to have fun with this thing, a nice hide-and-seek game, but in scion style. As the scion was thinking about the game, he didn't notice that the others were still looking at him, but when he noticed it, he didn't care one bit because he had one thing in his mind: to hunt the thing down and kill it. How was he able to hit it when no one could see it? Asked Zoro himself and wondered how powerful Broly really was, which made him uneasy. The taller man could prove to be a problem if they were careless. While Zoro was lost in his thoughts, Robin approached the scion who was staring at the island. "Thank you for that. I really appreciate it," spoke Robin with a gentle voice while she smiled. She wondered how he managed to do that, and to tell the truth, she really wanted to know more about the strange man. Broly noticed Robin standing close to him and for the first time in his life received appreciation. He somehow felt good to hear that for the first time in his life, and how she smiled at him, but the tall scion quickly tossed that feeling away. He was a scion, a ruthless warrior feared all over the universe. This kind of things weren't important to him, so he just grunted something and walked away. As he walked towards the fence, Robin remained a bit confused at first, but then she just smiled at his silly behavior. Just at that moment, a sudden pack of waves hit the ship and made it shake. Frankie immediately told the others to raise the anchor so that they could move away, but as soon as they did that, they were thrown towards the giant spider web. There weren't even time to use one of the ship's secret weapons, so they were caught in giant spider web. "Well, that's just great. We can't do nothing but stay put because of this huge spider web," spoke Sanji, who wasn't in a good mood while he lighted up the new cigarette. "That skeleton ship too, and even Mini Mary are here, but there is no sight of Nami, Usopp, and Chopper. I can't stop but think that this was all planned. There's something strange going on," mumbled Zoro, who was by now the only one standing on the ship while the others were already at the entrance of the island. "Hey Zoro, what are you rambling about? Come with us since there will be more lunchboxes," yelled Luffy with a smile on his face. He was ready for finding some ghosts, while his new crew member Broly only wanted to hunt the thing from the ship and find if there was someone strong to fight. After Zoro joined with them, they all followed the passageway, and to their surprise, they ended going downstairs. "Why are there all of a sudden these stairs leading down?" asked Frankie, who wondered who built these stairs and why were they heading down at said entrance. "So it doesn't matter." "Huh? What was that sound?" wondered Luffy out loud, which made the others stop and look forward. From the dark emerged a big dog with 3 heads. While the others were a little surprised and some even considered the beast cute, Broly remembered that he saw a creature similar to this on a planet he visited when he was a kid. The beast wasn't shaped like a dog, but more like some lizard, and it had 4 heads instead of 3, unlike this one. Broly chuckled at the memory because that was his first battle and how easily he killed the beast. He also remembered how proud he felt at the time, but only to be humiliated by his father, who complained how sloppy and slow he killed it. Broly was about to put his hand in front and destroy the beast just because it reminded him of the memory of his dead father, but he woke up from that when he saw Luffy punch the beast and that he tamed the 3-headed dog. "In any case, I wonder how it can still be alive with that kind of wound," stated Robin, who noticed the wound on the 3-headed dog. But what Sanji found strange was the fact that it wasn't completely a 3-headed dog. Above that, "It's a wonder this thing is alive when it has 1 head from a fox," said Sanji while he picked up the fox head by the ear, only to receive a quiet moan from the beast, but he quickly let go the beast as Luffy jumped on the beast and ordered to move forward. Some minutes later, the crew found the stairs leading up and climbed them. The group passed by the metallic gate and walked into the forest. "This island is so fun already with this guy popping out. I can't wait to see other animals," exclaimed Luffy happily while he was on top of the beast, who was having a bad time, on which Robin smiled and pitied the being while Sanji shouted Nami's name and hoped to receive an answer, but nothing. Zoro and Broly just walked quietly, none of them saying a word, while Frankie was 1 step behind, observing the new place they entered. Everything was quiet and peaceful until Luffy saw something really strange and bizarre. In front of them was a tree with the face of an old man having a drink with a unicorn. Both Luffy and Frankie rushed towards them and caught them easily. "He, I caught him," yelled Luffy happily while the tree with a face pleaded and cried to be freed. "Haha, I caught a strange one," said Frankie, who dragged the unicorn by its horn, and it was in this moment when Luffy thought of something. "Hey, I know. You two want to join my pirate?" Luffy couldn't even finish his speech when he was interrupted by Zoro and Sanji, who yelled at the same time at their captain's stupid idea, "Stop fucking around." The uncomplicated crew walked for more than 20 minutes, and in the meantime, Sanji yelled at both Luffy and Frankie. He yelled at Luffy because of his careless invitation to everyone he saw and to Frankie because he was into it too, but that soon escalated to the point where Sanji and Frankie were arguing about if Frankie was a robot, a cyborg, or a pervert. While the two were arguing, Luffy was singing a song since he was happy and excited about this place, but at the same time, Robin was thinking about something that she noticed on this island about that tree person and the unicorn. I found something strange about them, spoke Robin, who caught Zoro's attention as well as Broly's, who remained quiet, curious to hear her theory. Well, this forest has many strange creatures and all of them have similar wounds, stitches, and numbers on their bodies, stated Robin, on which Zoro and Broly as well come to one logical conclusion. So that would mean that these strange creatures have a common origin, said Zoro as he walked while he glanced at Robin, who only nodded, but all of them stopped when they suddenly heard something. Hey, are you all hearing that? Asked Luffy, who tried to pinpoint the exact location of the sound, but was soon surprised when he saw a ghost appearing right in front of him. AAA, an apparition. It's a ghost, yelled the captain excitedly and ready to catch the white ghost, who repeated the same word the whole time. Look, guys, it's dancing and multiplying. I'm gonna catch it, exclaimed Luffy, who was about to jump and catch the ghost, while Sanji just stood on the left side from the three-headed dog and didn't like the sound of the ghosts. I'm gonna catch it and keep him, yelled Luffy determinedly as he jumped and tried to catch the ghost with a net, but it just went through the ghost, which kept saying the same word, negative, it doesn't have any substance. Let's try this. Fresh free, yelled Frankie and unleashed his fiery breath, thinking that would get rid of the ghost, but it did nothing. Instead, the ghost went through Frankie, which made him somehow different. It seems I can't do anything right these days. I just want to die already, cried Frankie, who dropped on the ground and begged to die, while Sanji yelled at the cyborg because of his stupid behavior. What the hell are you getting depressed for? Yelled Sanji, and while he was yelling at Frankie, Luffy tried to catch the ghost with his bare hands, but he went just through him, and just like Frankie ended up depressed and soon messed up. I wanna die, cried Luffy together with Frankie on the ground, while Sanji grew angrier. Stop with this group therapy already, shouted Sanji furiously, pretty sure he was heard all over the world because of these two. The third ghost was about to move towards his next target, which was Broly. The tall scion was well aware of his surroundings, and when the ghost was just in front of him, with his amazing speed he moved away from the ghost and avoided the attack without anyone even noticing. While all of that was going on, Robin came to a conclusion that maybe by touching this ghost both Luffy and Frankie ended up like that, on which Zoro snarled at how weak their spirit was, but just then a ghost passed through Zoro, who ended just like the other two on the ground, crying and wishing to die. The blonde cook couldn't take it anymore and without mercy beat the three men to their senses. It seems you were right, Robin, said Sanji as he fired up the cigarette and exhaled the smoke. This sure is a strange island, stated Robin, on which everybody couldn't but agree, and luckily for them the ghost all of a sudden flew away from them, leaving them surprised and angry at the same time. They continued their walking while Frankie and Luffy were mad at the ghost, and while Sanji was making fun of Zoro, who wasn't in the mood for that. As they walked, they noticed that they entered in the graveyard when Luffy came with a brilliant idea. This graveyard is so cool, let's eat here, suggested Luffy, who was already hungry and wanted to eat his packed lunchbox from Sanji. Idiot, this place would ruin the food. Besides, we're in a hurry, stated Sanji, who wanted to see Nami. He had a bad feeling about all of this, and he was right because they suddenly heard something. They looked to their right and saw the ground crack and an old man in a bad shape come out of it. Luffy stared at the man when he started to walk towards it, and when he arrived in front he just grabbed the man by its shoulders and pushed it back in his grave. 5 seconds passed when the old-looking man jumped from the grave, angry at Luffy. What do you think you're doing, moron? Hey, you're badly wounded. Are you okay? Asked Luffy, while the others in the back yelled at him because of his lack of sense. That's a zombie. And just as they yelled, all the zombies in the graveyard jumped out and started to slowly walk towards them. While they slowly walked towards them, Broly once again found this planet strange. He never met nor heard about people who died and then managed to rise from their graves. Broly soon noticed that a couple of zombies were near him and that they were about to bite him. Just like him, the others were also attacked and defended themselves from the horde of zombies. The Scion responded by simply releasing his energy high enough to blow the zombies high in the sky, making unable to see them ever again. The strong Scion just spat at the poor attempt of the Walking Dead when he saw how the rest of the crew handled them. Soon after that, the captain handled the interrogation of the zombies and discovered that Nami, Usopp, and Chopper indeed passed through this graveyard, and also that the zombies attacked them, so he decided to put the zombies back in the ground. But upside down, the crew resumed their search and walked out from the graveyard, but little did they know that somebody was following them from behind. An old man, all covered with bandages and with a lamp in his hand, walked as fast as he could to catch the crew and asked them something very important. "Well, wait, please. Wait, you guys," yelled the old man, who barely managed to catch the others' attention, and continued his speech. "I just saw how strong you really are, and I have one request for you," said the man while he tried to breathe. "Huh? You're badly wounded. What happened, old man?" asked Luffy, while Zoro, Frankie, and Sanji yelled at Luffy for not recognizing another zombie, but it ended up that they were at fault. "Ha! What's up with that getup? You really look like a zombie," yelled the trio angrily at the man, but the man didn't even hear them. "Please, I beg you, you young people, to defeat a certain man. Many have fallen ill because of him, and if he were defeated, everything and everybody would return to normal, and I would be eternally grateful to you all if my shadow were returned back to me," stated and pleaded the old man, who was on his knees, almost crying for help, which Broly found disgraceful and turned to the other side. "While old man, you really don't have a shadow, just like Brook," exclaimed Luffy, who stood just in front of the old man when he noticed that the man was missing his shadow. "Who was it that did all this? Is he on this island?" asked Zoro, who was curious to know who was this guy with such power, and he wasn't the only one. The Scion already focused his full attention to this. He was sure that this guy who can steal shadows is probably strong, and he was sure to find him and see how strong he really is before he ends his life. "Yes, I know who he is. It's Moria," answered the old man, immediately causing Robin to sweat in fear, which only Broly noticed and already figured that this Moria was a real deal. "To search for Moria? Are you referring to Gecko Moria?" asked Robin, who wanted to be sure that she heard right, and she did when the old man confirmed it. "Hey, Robin, do you know this guy Moria?" asked Luffy, who wondered if Robin maybe knew this man who could steal shadows. "I know his name well. His bounty exceeds even yours, Luffy. Gecko Moria, one of the 7 warlords," stated Robin, on which everybody widened their eyes in surprise except Broly, who didn't have a clue what that meant, but he did understand that this Moria guy must be strong since his bounty was bigger than Luffy's. The tall black-haired Scion couldn't but smirk. This was it, what he waited for all these days, to find a strong opponent and have some fun before killing it. "A warlord! Is that true, Robin?" shouted Luffy in surprise. He didn't expect to find one of the 7 warlords here, on this island, but his surprised expression quickly changed. He was excited and couldn't wait to find this Gecko Moria person. "Yes, he's a man of many mysteries," said Robin as one drop of sweat fell across her forehead. She heard some things about Moria which weren't that good, but what's a guy like that doing here, in a place like this? asked Frankie, who couldn't figure out why would a man of that status be here, on this island. "I dunno, but there are a lot more victims like me that got lost in this forest. The fact that you guys were invited here too, I'm positive that Moria has his eyes on you," stated the old man, who couldn't take it anymore and started to cry. The others waited for the old man to continue with his story while Broly stood there with very thin patience. He didn't care about the old man's story and about retrieving his lost shadow. He just wanted to fight already. He wasn't in a real battle since the day he arrived on this planet, and he couldn't take it anymore. If they spent even a minute more with this crying old man, he will go on his own and track down this Moria person. Broly turned toward the old man, who between the sobs managed to continue his story. "We hide in the dark of this remaining forest, afraid of the zombies. Frightened to sail to the open sea and be exposed to the sun. In any case, this body doesn't feel alive anymore. Just one more time before I die. I want to walk into the sunlight," yelled the old man in tears while he was kneeling on the ground and with one hand on his head. The man wasn't the only one crying. The cyborg was so touched by the man's story that even he started to cry. "That's so heartbreaking." "Ah. Okay. I'm not worried and am not crying," shouted Frankie, all in tears, while Zoro just watched the man and couldn't believe it. "You're too compassionate." "Don't burden yourself like that," said Zoro as he exhaled. The man in front of him was too compassionate sometimes. "Hey, Gramps. It's a lady's privilege to persuade the others with tears," spoke Sanji, on his back, also known as kneeing. "They'll be certainly useful to you, Master Moria," said the third one, on which Moria just smiled and began to chuckle. At that same time, Luffy and his uncompleted crew arrived at the entrance of the mansion, but just as they arrived, the rain started to fall from the sky. There was also something else that caught Luffy's attention as he looked up. Great, it started to rain pretty hard, complained Zoro while he stood behind his captain and waited for him to move on. Shall we run to the mansion? Asked Frankie, who wasn't too happy about the idea to get all wet. Wait a moment. There's something above the mansion. Is that a mark? Asked Luffy, who caught the attention from the others, and they too looked up. The fog is slowly clearing up a bit, but is that a flag? Questioned Zoro out loud, since he wasn't sure if he saw it right, but they were all soon surprised by the sudden discovery. No, wait. Wouldn't that be a sail? Yelled Frankie, who was surprised just like the others, because if this really was a sail, then that would mean only one thing. This was not an island, this is. Yes, you are right, that's a sail. It's so huge I can't comprehend it. Shouted the old man while he was standing behind the pirate crew, who didn't even know that the old man was following them. Who, by the way, surprised them. You're still here, old man. Yelled Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, and Frankie at the same time. This thriller bark is the world's largest pirate ship. Stated the old man, who shocked the others by reviling this. The old man resumed with his explanation. The back of the mansion is the main mast. That's also the place where Gecko Moria is. As soon as the old man said that, Broly shifted his gaze towards the mansion and grinned. So that's the place where Moria is. Spoke Sanji as he lightened up his cigarette and looked up at the mansion, to which the old man nodded, and the others just like him looked up. Well, are you guys ready? Let's go to the ghost mansion and kick Moria, eh? Before Luffy was able to finish his sentence, he was surprised by the sudden yelp from the old man and by the wind which hit him from behind. He and the others turned around only to be almost blown away by the strong force. Luckily they were strong enough to endure it, but they were surprised at where it came from. They all looked at their new crew member Broly with their eyes wide open. A strong force was unleashed from the Scion as his dark blue aura flared around him. They were speechless. They never saw anything like this in their lives. What the hell is this? What's going on? Yelled Frankie, who could barely stand in front of the strong force. He never encountered something like this. A devil fruit, maybe? I don't know. Just hang in there. Shouted Sanji back to Frankie, but he also had a hard time standing in front of such force. He didn't understand what was going on with Broly all of a sudden. It was as if he just exploded. I knew this guy would be trouble. Damn it! Thought Zoro, who knew that the person in front of them was not so normal, and he feared what his next move would be. While Zoro was thinking about what to do next, the old man was about to be blown away by the strong force, but he was saved thanks to Robin's extra hands. She, just like the others, was having a hard time to stand, but her devil fruit power helped her. She sweated and with amazement in her eyes watched the Scion in front of her. She never saw something like this, and she found it fascinating. Amazing. I can barely stand here. What kind of devil fruit did he eat? Wondered Robin while she observed the black-haired Scion in front while his blue aura flared around. She was fascinated by the color, which she found beautiful, but she snapped from her thoughts when she heard Luffy yelling, Broly, what are you doing? What's going on? Yelled Luffy at the Scion. He didn't know what was going on. He feared that something was wrong with his friend. He didn't even for a second thought that this might be a power of the devil fruit. The tall Scion heard what his captain asked and only chuckled as he glanced at them. He saw the looks on their faces, which he found hilarious. They didn't even know the true extent of his power, and they already had such a hard time to stand in front of him. He moved his head up and looked at the mansion in front of him. I'm going to kill him. Don't cross my path if you wish to live, declared Broly, who surprised the others by what he said, but they were about to be shocked when they saw the Scion blast in the sky, leaving behind a small crater on the ground. The others covered their faces because of the wind and the dust as the Scion flew off towards the top floor of the mansion. When the smoke cleared, the others just stood there with shocked expression on their faces. The man in front of them just flew in the sky. What the hell just happened? He's flying! Yelled Frankie, whose eyes almost came out because of the shock. He couldn't believe what he just saw. He suddenly exploded like that and flew in the sky. What is he thinking going on like that? But he probably ate a devil fruit, stated Sanji, who didn't know of any other explanation than this. But somewhere deep inside he wasn't so sure, and he wasn't the only one. Maybe he's using that same technique that those CP9 guys used. Either way, we should go inside and look for Nami, Usopp, and Chopper, said Zoro, on which Frankie and Sanji agreed. They totally forgot about those three, and they needed to find them fast. Luffy, let's go, Zoro called his captain, but nothing. Zoro turned towards his captain when he saw how sparkly he was. The swordsman just facepalmed and mumbled something while Luffy just stared at the trail Broly left behind. Wow, so cool! Shouted Luffy, who was amazed by what Broly just did and didn't even notice Sanji and Frankie, who were punching and kicking him for such a childish behavior at a time like this. Now is not the time, you idiot. My dear Nami must be terrified and they're all alone without me. Yelled Sanji angrily as he kicked Luffy, who couldn't say a thing. He's right. Hey, what about the deer and the long nose? Asked Frankie after he punched Luffy in the face. What about them? Said Sanji, back only to be interrupted by the swollen Luffy, who just laughed. He, don't worry, they will be fine. Let us go. I want to fight too, laughed Luffy, who stood up as he adjusted his hat and with the others walked inside the court and headed to the mansion's doors. As they walked toward the doors, Robin couldn't but not think of Broly. He was such a mystery to her and she wanted to know more about him. She snapped from her thoughts when Luffy broke the doors and walked inside. Few seconds before Broly suddenly erupted and flew towards the mansion, Moria finally woke up and laughed at the news that he heard. He was thrilled. He heard what the Straw Hats pirates did and he couldn't ask for better specimens than them. He had a wonderful idea about what to do with them, especially with their captain. I see, Straw Hat Luffy, yeah. Wonderful. Call the generals to come here immediately. He laughed Moria, on which the three little men nodded and immediately ran to inform the generals, but they stopped when they felt the ground under their feet shake. They looked at each other when they heard a loud explosion not too far from them. The three of them fell on their butts while Moria wondered what the hell was that, huh? What was that? Asked Moria, who didn't have any idea that someone was coming after him. Moria looked at the three men on the floor, looking for answers, but just like him, they didn't know what that was when suddenly they heard footsteps. For each second that passed, the footsteps were closer and closer when suddenly they stopped just in front of his bedroom doors. For a second, Moria thought that whoever it is, he was killed by his wall zombies, but he was proven wrong when the doors were knocked down. Moria wasn't pleased by this, and he was sure to torture the one who dared to do this. The intruder walked into the room with a smirk on his face and looked at the big man sitting in front of him. The man in front of him was a lot taller than he was, but he was also a lot fattier. The man had a purple hair with two horns just beneath it. His skin tone was pale blue, which remained Broly of an alien he encountered few years ago, but Broly snapped from that and just walked towards his prey. He was curious to see how strong and what kind of power this man has. The Scion blood in him was boiling for a fight and challenge. As Broly walked towards him, Moria carefully observed the man. He never saw this man, and he knew that this guy wasn't in Straw Hat's crew last time he checked, or maybe he was a new one and came here to fight him. Moria just laughed at that thought and stood up, which caught Broly's attention. Hi, suppose you were one of Straw Hat Luffy's crew members, right? Asked Gecko Moria. But he received no answer from the Scion, who observed his surroundings when he noticed three small men in front of Moria with their weapons out. When he received no answer, Moria was getting a little frustrated. Who does he think he is? Ignoring him and he like this. But he will soon tremble in fear, just like the rest. Hi, thought Moria and laughed at his imagination and how nice of this man was to come to him only to give him his shadow. It's so nice of you to come here to give me your shadow. But tell me, where's your captain? I have great plans, and he's a big part of it. Hi, asked Moria, but once again no answer come from Broly, which made Moria angry. Moria yelled at the Scion, how dare he, and nobody ignore him. Answer my question, you idiot. Tell me, where exactly is your stupid captain? Yelled Moria angrily at Broly, only to receive a dangerous glare from the Scion. For a moment, Moria felt uneasy, but that quickly changed when he felt a lot of pain. Before he could even process what happened, he was punched in the face, which sent him crashing into the wall. The three little men screamed, afraid for their boss life. Master Moria. Are you all right, Master? Gore! How dare you hit our master like that? Let's get him, guys! Yelled the one with the sword, on which the other two nodded and together rushed towards Broly, who just with a swing of his hand blew away the attackers, who crashed the window and fell down. Broly was about to turn towards Moria when he noticed that the man he punched was up with a mad look on his face. How dare you do this? I will show you not to mess with me, and when I'm done with you, I will steal your shadow. Hi, stated Gecko Moria, who was bleeding, but he ignored that and laughed at Broly, who waited for Moria to attack. He wanted to see Moria's devil fruit powers and then kill him. The Scion just stood there when he saw that something was going on around Moria, who still laughed. Hi, you're finished, Black Bat! Yelled Moria, who unleashed 100 of black dots which turned out to be shaped like bats. The bats attacked Broly, who dodged few of them, but some even managed to bite him, which he didn't like one bit. The Scion stopped dodging and punched and kicked the bats, who on the end dropped on the ground. The Scion thought that everything was over and was about to attack Moria when he noticed that the fool in front was laughing at him. Broly didn't understand why, but he soon did when he was hit from behind his back. The Scion took few steps forward, and when he turned around he was surprised when he was a replica of Moria, but this one was dark just like a shadow. Hi, shocked are you not? Well, you were a fool coming here to fight me, and even though I would like to take your shadow now, I will do it later. I have to catch your captain, bye, said Moria, who ran towards the exit, but Broly wasn't about to let him go. The Scion just disappeared and was about to kick Moria from behind, but what he kicked wasn't Moria, it was his shadow clone. Broly grunted something and quickly grew irritated of this, because at first he thought that the man would give him a challenge and fight, but this guy only relied on this cheap tricks. Broly once again kicked the shadow, but when he saw that Moria wasn't in his eyesight, he was mad. Broly didn't even saw that the clone resurrected again when he released his anger. The whole mansion, no, the whole ship trembled under Broly's anger when the room exploded. The black-haired Scion flew out from the destroyed room mad at Moria and mostly himself. He was sure that if his father was here that he would mock him and yell at him how pitiful he was, a lowly creature like Moria, to trick him like that and escape. Broly gritted his teeth in anger while his black hair spiked a little, but then he saw something on the ground that was on the run. The Scion looked down and saw Moria there, running. Without wasting any more time, the Scion flew into the forest, but little did Broly know that he was once again tricked. Hi, what a fool to be tricked that easily, but I must admit that I'm impressed how much his punch hurt. Damn it, how did he destroy my room? Anyway, it's time to catch the Straw Hat, and then I will be unstoppable. Hi, laughed Moria from the shadows and quickly walked away, very confident in his big plans. Outside the huge mansion, a horde of zombies screamed as a black-haired man flew past them. With only passing by them, the zombies were tossed high in the sky or crashed into a ruined house and trees. The new crew member had only one objective: to hunt down the coward who ran away from their fight and kill him. The shirtless man moved with great speed around the trees, which were covering a large amount of the island. He already made a big distance between him and the mansion and decided to stop. He slowly descended on the ground and with his black eyes observed the area that surrounded him. He was tracking and trying to find Moria for more than 20 minutes already, and yet there was no sign of him. There was no way that someone so inferior to him could escape from his wrath. The muscular young man closed his black eyes, concentrating and hoping that he would feel the presence of his prey, but only to his irritation he couldn't find him. He released a low growl when he heard something. The man immediately opened his eyes and with high speed dashed towards the place from where the noise came. He passed by a large tree when he saw Moria running away behind the trees. The man had enough of wasting his time and opened his closed hand, in which a yellow key orb was formed. The key orb grew in size after he fired it and consumed everything in its path when eventually it swallowed Moria. The new member of the Straw Hat pirate crew walked through the smoke until he saw something moving in it. As the smoke cleared away, the man was surprised when he saw only a black shadow in the shape of Gecko Moria disappearing. What was even worse, the shadow had a smile on it which only added fuel to fire. When the dark shadow completely vanished, the young man stood in his place for a few short seconds with his fist closed until he growled. Arfed! Immediately after he snarled, a dark/blue aura appeared around him, destroying the whole area that surrounded him. Under his golden boots, there was a small crater which was created by his sudden energy explosion. He gritted hard with his teeth while he had his fist clenched almost to the point where it started bleeding. He cursed at himself for being so easily fooled. He couldn't believe that he, a scion, could be oversmart by such a lowly creature. What angered him even more was the laugh he heard from the back of his head. It was the voice of his father, laughing and mocking him. The scion flew high in the sky, leaving the destroyed ground behind him. He stopped when he reached the wanted height and stared down as his aura flared around his thin but yet muscular body. He placed his right hand in front and fired a barrage of yellow blast towards the largest ship in the world. The ki blast created explosions mostly around the forest where a lot of people were hiding from the sunlight, but the scion didn't care for them. His anger was climbing new heights, his hair slowly spiked and his black pupils repeatedly changed color, from black to teal. He stopped and raised his hand and aimed towards the mansion. This time, a big ki ball appeared in front of his open palm. He was about to fire it and obliterate the building and everyone in it when something stopped him. It was the voice. That gentle and calm voice which was ever since he came to this world growing louder and stronger. The voice was telling him to stop, to calm down, but his rage was greater than the gentle voice. That rage was who he was and no one could stop it when images flashed in front of his eyes. He remembered that the others were inside, looking for the orange-haired woman, the coward, and Furball. His hair was slowly falling down, but only to go up again when the other voice, his beast, appeared. They were nothing to him, he was a scion and scions didn't need friends. The word echoed in his mind as he remembered what happened when he first met Luffy and the others. They were the first people who treated him right. They didn't try to control him like his father did, nor did they mock him. He today, even for the first time in his life, received an appreciation. He growled, torn between the two decisions when he heard a loud detonation. He raised his head up and saw a large creature falling down from the sky. The creature released a loud yell, causing the scion to cover his ears even though he was very far away. He could hear the giant creature speak something and it seemed like it moved in his direction. His hair fell down like it usually was and the ki ball disappeared. The rage was replaced with an interest in the creature which appeared out of nowhere. The giant, to his surprise, placed a large boulder on its head, between two big horns, and started yelling once again. "I'm gonna be the king of the pirates!" shouted the creature as his voice echoed through the whole place. The giant monster was slowly approaching the place where the scion was floating. The scion just moved from the giant creature path and observed it for a moment. He began to think if this big creature was possibly even taller than Oozaru. An interesting thought crossed his mind. A battle between Oozaru and this creature would be quite an amusing fight. He once again released a low snarl and cursed his father for cutting off his tail. The scion snapped from thinking about his deceased father when he noticed that the red monster stopped moving. He watched it standing there for a few minutes until the giant threw away the boulder and walked back to the mansion. Broly didn't know what caused the sudden change, but he decided to follow the strange creature. Broly slowly floated far away from the giant when he on accident saw some people on the roof. He recognized the swordsman and the cyborg who held the skeleton from falling down. The two of them were yelling something which made the scion look to the crushed rubble when he saw the blonde-haired cook underneath the giant feet. Broly was thinking to land on the ground when he noticed the long-nosed pirate standing just in the place where he wanted to land. The scion thought for a moment if he even wanted to land now, since he was sure that the long-nosed man would probably scream in fear. He decided to stay floating in the air when the giant once again yelled, "Show yourselves! Straw Hat Crew!" The monster roared the name of the pirate crew as it raised his closed fists. It was pretty obvious to Broly that the creature was looking for a fight he was more than welcome to give. Broly was about to approach the giant when he heard the cook yell at the monster. "Oi! Move away, idiot! The hell do you think you're doing getting in our way, Luffy?" Angrily yelled the pirate cook Sanji, who had much more important things to do, such as rescue Nami from that damn lion guy who once again kidnapped her, but this time from him, which was something he would never forgive himself. "Luffy? He's my enemy. My name is Oz. Pleased to meet you," replied the giant Oz, who glanced down at the small man in a black suit. He looked the man on the ground for a few moments when he glanced at his left arm. On his left arm was a list of all Straw Hat wanted posters. Oz saw a poster with a man with swirly eyebrows and looked back at the blonde man. "A spitting image. You're one of the pirates too. Goma Goma no." The monster placed his left hand in front while the other hand was above his head, comma. Everybody watching thought that the arm would stretch, but even without stretching, the monster had a big reach and brute force which Sanji barely avoided. The cook ran towards the giant and jumped in hopes to kick him in the head. He was about to kick Oz, but the monster countered the kick with his forehead, knocking Sanji back on the ground. The blonde-haired man bounced from the ground when to his shock he was punched into a building. Blood covered his left side of the face as he was falling down along with the rubble, but was caught by the monster. "Oh shit! He's going to die!" shouted Zoro from the roof, on which Chopper gasped in shock. They feared for Sanji's life when they saw something hit the giant at the back of his large head. Chopper turned to the right and saw Usopp standing with his weapon. The long nose trembled in fear, but he forced himself for the sake of his friend. What made him tremble even more was the fact that the little fire on the Oz head didn't do a thing. The long-haired monster turned around and threw Sanji into the rubble. The monster checked the posters once again and saw two people matching and walked towards their location. "This is bad. Frankie, draw his attention over here," yelled Zoro quickly to the cyborg, who nodded and immediately fired a cannonball from his left hand, but to everyone's shock the giant avoided the attack with such agility and ease that even surprised the scion floating in the air a little bit. Oz was already in the air and kicked the tower on which Zoro, Frankie, and Brook were. They were falling down, but Zoro was the only one who managed to land on the giant arm from which he attacked him. With one sword in his mouth and two in his hands, he attacked Oz Ichigorilla. His left arm bulked, and Igorilla, now his right arm bulked the same way. He was in front of the giant face when he released a final shout, "Santuryu! Nigger Isaac!" Zoro went for a slice, but it was stopped by the big sharp tooth. However, he sliced the tooth and was sure to slice the giant head in half, but once again Oz dodged as he lowered down. Before Zoro could do anything, Oz kicked him high towards the sky while the swordsman spat blood because of the powerful hit. "Zoro! Are you alive? Oh no! He's going to die if he falls from that height!" screamed Usopp as he watched his friend already falling down. He didn't know what to do. He needed to think of something, otherwise Zoro would die. "Eat this, you monster!" mumbled Frankie as he once again tried to hit the monster with a new attack. "Weapons left!" The cyborg again missed his target, or would it be better to say that the monster once again avoided the attack? "What?" He dodged it again. "Ugh," yelled the man in disbelief, but that was quickly replaced with pain when both he and Brook were hit by Oz's attack. The two of them fell on the ground, while Zoro was also close to it. "Zoro is falling this way," said Chopper, who warned Robin, who already prepared herself for helping and preventing Zoro from hitting the ground. "Cien Fleur, spider net!" The moment Robin said those words, a net of arms grew from the half-destroyed bridge and quickly surrounded Zoro, saving him from falling to the ground and dying. The swordsman spilled more blood, but as he opened his left eye he cursed when he saw us holding a boulder. Chopper yelled in fear while Robin sweated when they heard someone yelling from behind their backs. "Eat this! You're a zombie too! Salt Star!" Usopp fired the small bag filled with salt that was given to him and managed to hit inside the open mouth. All of them stood there and waited for something or anything to happen, but unfortunately nothing. It wasn't enough for this huge body, concluded the long nose, on which Chopper couldn't do anything else than transform and at least do something. "Heavy gong!" The now big Chopper raised his left fist and jumped towards Oz, but the giant just threw a big boulder at him and the others behind. All of them were lying on the ground, between the rubble covered in blood. The red monster stood above them and with his loud voice started talking. "Moria servant! Oz!" declared the monster, after which he glanced back to the posters. The long-haired demon noticed that few people were missing amongst the one he already killed. "Now, who's left?" "That straw hat guy from earlier, the orange girl, and the hero." "That's three of them. Where could they be?" asked Oz himself as he scratched his head. The red demon was about to search for the three missing pirates when he heard some noise from behind. He turned around only to see a black-haired man floating in front of him. Oz stared at the man in confusion, after which he looked at the posters. You're not on the posters. Are you one of them?" He didn't receive any answer from the floating man, but because of his loud voice the people he thought were dead stood from the ground and looked up. It was little to say how shocked Usopp and Chopper were when they saw Broly floating in the air in front of Oz's face. "He's floating up there! How is he doing that?" yelled Chopper, whose hat almost jumped from his head. Usopp was just as surprised, but instead of yelling his eyes were wide open. The long nose was still afraid of the new crew member, especially after what he saw him do to a vice admiral. A devil fruit, but let's show this giant bastard not to mess around with Luffy's shadow, stated Sanji as he fired up his new cigarette, on which the others nodded. They only took 2 steps forward when the Scion warned them. "Don't come any closer, I'll end this by my own 2 hands," spoke Broly, who like always was expressionless. His words, like previous actions, surprised some, while the others skeptically looked at his back. Sanji couldn't let that happen. They didn't know what or how strong Broly was, but he couldn't let a person die. The cook wanted to jump in there and distract the giant, but just then started laughing. He, you're so funny. There's no one who can beat me, Oz," laughed the monster, who with his loud voice started to annoy the Scion, who never liked loud noises. Broly clenched his right fist, and without even anyone from the ground see him move, he delivered an uppercut to the monster, who was lifted from the ground because of the force behind that punch. To everyone's shock, Oz crashed into the mansion after only whatever the hell Broly did. I think I'm dreaming," mumbled Usopp, whose eyes almost fell out because of so much shock in one day. Chopper, who was next to him, was in the same state. Even his hat was shocked after what the Scion did. "Unbelievable! He took him down like he was nothing," yelled Frankie, who didn't even saw Broly move, let alone punch Oz in the jaw. The cyborg glanced at the floating man and wondered what kind of fruit did he eat to be so powerful. "I don't know what to say. First he put up a fight with a vice admiral, then he's suddenly able to fly, and this. What the hell is he?" Sanji wasn't asking anyone in particular, he was just thinking how was Broly able to do it when their attacks did nothing to the giant. "Everyone look out!" Zoro suddenly yelled as he tried to warn the others. The red demon started to move, and because of his sloppy moving, the already weak building started to fall. Pieces of the mansion fell, but all the pirates managed to dodge. They looked back at the giant, who was slowly standing up, but what they noticed was his jaw. His jaw was hanging very weirdly, which they assumed was because it was broken. "You bastard! Now you made me mad. I'll send you flying," threatened Oz, who had trouble speaking because of his broken jaw. The giant pulled the right arm behind while the Scion just remained on the same spot. He pulled the fist back while yelling, "Goma Goma no pistol," and managed to hit the black-haired Scion. Everyone thought that was it for their crew member, but after a few seconds they saw struggling. The demon sweated because he wanted to push his fist more forward, but something was blocking it. "Is that all your power?" said the voice, which caused the demon to desperately push, but it was doing nothing. Broly just chuckled at the pitiful attempt. "You're weak. Someone of your pathetic strength can do nothing to a Scion like me." These words offended Oz, who quickly pulled his right hand away and tried to surprise the Scion with his left. Broly avoided the fist and reappeared above Oz's head. The Scion grabbed the left horn and started to pull the monster up. Oz tried to stay on the ground, which only made Broly smirk. The Scion released yell, after which his aura appeared around his body, surprising the 2 pirates who didn't saw it before. He pulled the demon above ground, when to his satisfaction his horn broke in half. Oz fell on the ground, causing the whole ship to tremble. Broly started slowly descending to the ground, when to his surprise he was face to face with Oz's leg. The giant monster sent the young Scion crashing into a building behind his crew. Broly went through the whole building only to crash in the courtyard, behind the mansion, which was filled with zombies. "Oh no! Is he dead?" shouted Chopper in his most humanoid form as he stared at the hole in the building. Without realizing what was going on, he is suddenly pushed away just in time before the monster leg could squash him. The giant continued smashing the whole area with his feet, hoping that he would get rid of the pirates already. After 1 minute of his rampage, the red giant calmed down and waited for the created smoke to disappear, when suddenly he yelped. "Knee crush!" yelled at the same time both Frankie and Zoro. Frankie smashed the right knee with his 2 boulder-like nunchakus, while Zoro sliced the other knee. Oz was forced to fall on his damaged knees, which caused the cyborg to laugh at the red monster, who mumbled something. "Waha, what's the matter? Feeling a little bit down? Just you wait until Straw Hat beats Moria," laughed Frankie, while one boulder was on his shoulder and the other was hanging down. "Why would we need to wait? We should just beat him, and that's it, spoke Zoro, who received a surprised expression from the cyborg. Frankie thought they were just stalling the monster from interfering with Luffy's fight. A fight's not over until you won it, stated the man as he unsheathed his swords. While Frankie and Usopp tried to reason with him, Zoro put one sword in his mouth while the other two were in his hands. If you don't want to fight, get out of here. I don't feel like waiting for Luffy either, added Sanji, who was just like Zoro, prepared to fight the monster to the very end. The monster once again raised his hand, almost ready for unleashing another attack. It is said that hardness is the greatest characteristic of this black blade, and this is the perfect time to test it out. Zoro was ready for Oz's attack while Usopp yelled far behind his back to wait for their captain, but the swordsmen didn't listen. The red fist landed right next to Zoro, who just by the strong shockwave was forced to back away. The green-haired man needed to move quickly because another fist was coming at him. Zoro! Watch out! Yelled Usopp, who tried to warn his friend. Luckily, Zoro was well aware of the attack that was coming at him, and to Chopper's shock, he managed to redirect the large hand. Oz was off balance and opened for an attack which the swordsman counted on. Santoria 108. Pondo ho! As he swung with his swords, a large sky blue slice headed towards Oz, which even surprised Zoro. It's huge! Shouted the man as he watched it going in Oz's direction. Thanks to his agility, Oz was able to even dodge that even after he took damage from Broly's punch and after being hit in his knees. Huh, you're pretty good for someone so tiny. That would do some real damage if he hit me while Oz talked. Zoro didn't even listen to the monster words. The pirate was examining the damage that his slice did to the wall and looked back at the black blade. It absorbed the other two swords' power and let off the blast with that one, but there's too much random destruction, which only proves that I'm not good enough at using it yet. Thought Zoro as he lifted up the new blade given to him and thanked the master swordsman he fought for that. Zoro was forced to snap out of it when he heard the red monster yell and once again stomping around the whole area. All of them survived the attack and safely stood there, except Usopp, who somehow managed to fall on his face. The long-nosed pirate released a little moan as he turned around, only for that to be replaced by a scream as he stared at Oz. He glanced at Sanji, Robin, Frankie, and Chopper and saw how hard they were breathing while covered with bruises and blood. Damn it! What are we gonna do now? Come on, Luffy, what's taking you so long? Yelled Usopp, afraid for his life as well for the lives of others. He didn't understand what was taking Luffy so much and was more and more thinking that they wouldn't make it in time. The long-nosed pirate knew, just like the rest, that if they don't beat the real master of this ship by dawn, then they would lose 3 of their friends forever. Several drops of sweat fell over Usopp's forehead and cheeks as he imagined his friends turning into nothing by a sunlight. Usopp snapped out of his thoughts as he heard Zoro talking to them. Trickery, an invisible man, a ghost woman, and a shadow master. This island is full of people with abilities that mess you around. The real issue here is whatever the enemy will actually give Luffy a chance to fight properly. Stated Zoro, who was standing in front of everyone and glared at the giant monster. He believed a lot in his captain, but there was always a chance that the enemy won't fight without using some tricks to their advantage. That does seem very likely, spoke Robin with her arms crossed as she agreed with Zoro. Frankie, who was standing next to her, just mumbled something as he thought more about what the man in front said. If by any chance they manage to delay Luffy until dawn, then Luffy and me and the cook, none of us will be able to fight. He tightened the grip on his 2 swords that were in his hands and continued, but as long as we at least manage to return Luffy's shadow before dawn arrives, then I bet everything will work out. Finished Zoro, who stared at Oz, who just stood there and observed the tiny people under his bare feet. I would say that we don't have even an hour left until the dawn comes, but on this island, deep in this mist and forest, the sunlight shouldn't be able to hit anywhere. Declared the cyborg as he looked into the sky, which was covered with thick mist. Morning is nearly here, huh? That mist is our only chance, right? Got to admit, I'm getting a really bad feeling about all this, said Sanji as he breathed the smoke out and put the cigarette back in his mouth. He was just about to ask about a person they almost seemed to forget when out of nowhere the whole place started to shake. Usopp was the first to fall on his behind along with Frankie, who slipped and fell on his back. Zoro, Sanji, Robin, and Chopper somehow managed to remain to stand, but even Oz was having difficulties. The red monster with long yellow hair watched where he was putting his big feet as he noticed the ground under him starting to crack. All of them heard piercing screams coming from behind their back when their eyes and the entire area was covered with a very bright light and loud destructive noise. After what seemed like a long time, Robin was first to open her eyes when she saw him standing there. What surprised even her was the fact that he was standing in the place where the building was supposed to be. She saw him surrounded by the blue light, but there was something strange about his appearance. His black hair spiked a lot and also seemed like he was a lot more muscular. Robin didn't know what happened to him or what he did, but the expression on his face sent shivers down her spine. While she was lost staring at him, the others finally opened their eyes. "Ugh, what the hell happened?" asked Frankie out loud as he stood up and adjusted his sunglasses, which almost fell from his face. He turned back only to let out a surprised yell. "Whoa! Where's the part of the mansion that was there?" "What are you talking about, Frankie?" spoke Usopp, who was the last to stand from the ground and didn't know that the part of the mansion was gone. Usopp cleared the dust from his pants and continued talking. "It was behind our backs all the time. It couldn't just disappear." He yelled the last part when he saw that there was nothing left. The shocked pirate mumbled something while Chopper, out of fear, reverted to his normal form. "Gag, guys, is it me or does Broly look kinda scary and I'm angry?" Chopper immediately seized a hold of the first person he was able to and hide. He was hiding behind Sanji's legs and with fear watched the man in the middle of nothing. Even Sanji and Zoro were lost for words as they were intimidated just by looking at the scion in front of them. Both pirates couldn't move. It was like there was some kind of high pressure above them. The silence lasted only for a second when Oz's loud voice echoed through the place. "Huh? Are you still alive? I thought I got rid of you." "Well, it's not a big deal. I can kill you along with the others if you want." Oz took one step forward and started walking towards the pirates. The red giant laughed at his targets when he stopped because of the scion flashy aura he somehow didn't notice before. "Wow. That's so cool. I want to know doing that, but it's too bad I have to kill you." The stars around Oz's face quickly disappeared as he was to hit the scion on the ground, but... "Garga!" growled Broly, whose aura exploded as the stones and pieces of rubble started floating. The ground under his feet cracked because of the pressure and everything that was close to him started to fall down. The black-haired scion launched himself towards the monster, who just blinked in confusion. Oz's confusion was replaced with a loud yell when he was hit in the already damaged knee. The monster was falling down, but as he was going down, Broly flew up and kicked Oz in the already broken jaw. Oz's pupils were gone as he was facing the sky when the scion appeared floating above him. Broly closed his hands together and smashed the red monster in the head. Oz's body was falling down, which caused the others to make some distance. They were shocked and without words to say, and just when they thought it was over, Broly descended on the ground near the fallen demon. He glared at him for a second when he started punching him in the head. With each punch he delivered to Oz, deeper in the ground they went. Crater after crater was created with each punch the angry scion unleashed, causing the pirates to only stay quiet and observe. After a few seconds, Broly jumped from the crater and floated in the sky. "You're nothing but trash," he spoke through his teeth as he placed his left hand in front. A small yellow key orb was starting to form itself in front of his palm, which didn't go unnoticed by the others on the ground. "What's he doing?" yelled the cyborg Frankie as he saw the bright yellow light in the shape of a ball appeared in Broly's hand. He didn't know what it was, but he had a terrible feeling about that. Next to him were Chopper and Usopp, who were still under the shock of what Broly did to Oz and couldn't even look up. "I don't know, but whatever he's up to, it doesn't look good," answered Zoro back with a yell and glanced up. He didn't understand what was going on with their new crew member. His face and behavior were totally different from what they knew, but then again, they knew only a little about him, which was why Zoro never dropped his guard around the man. "Hey, don't do anything anymore, Broly. The ship is already in bad shape, and a little bit more and all of us will end in the bottom of the sea," shouted Sanji at Broly as he saw the small yellow ball growing in size. The scion didn't seem to listen to him as the key orb grew 2 times bigger than before. "Ah! He's gonna fire that thing. Some please stop him, otherwise we will die!" screamed Usopp as tears fell over his cheeks. He dropped to his knees just as Broly pulled his hand up with the key orb in it and was about to throw it at Oz. "Broly, no!" yelled Robin, hoping that the Scion would hear her, but it was too late. Broly already fired the key blast when he heard her voice and looked in her direction. He saw her and others standing there, which he completely forgot about. They were running away from the place as fast as possible when the blast landed and exploded.